Welcome to Ruby Thursday. I'm Melissa Wanish. This is part 2 of the Ruby Roundtable that was recorded on September 14th, 2016. In this part of the Roundtable, we had more of a general discussion about a few questions that came up and also a book recommendation from the founder of the Ruby Roundtable meetup, Matt Jordy. Thanks again to our awesome sponsor, ThoughtWorks. Enjoy this part 2 of the Ruby Roundtable.
So I think what I want to do is just talk about what you guys are doing, and also talk about some things that I'm doing, as well as books I'm reading, etc. Right? So just a nice open forum in that respect. I can talk at length about my latest software book that I've kind of been evangelizing, and that's the Leprechauns of Software Design. You guys know it? Anyone?
Leprechauns of Software Design?
Leprechauns of Software Engineering. Right? Have a good night. Anyone using anything interesting as far as gems, doing something interesting with Ruby, or reading something interesting that's helping their profession?
I have a question for people like much smarter than me, for sure. In Ruby, so you have the require.
No one's smarter than me.
Stop it, bro. In Ruby, you have the require statement. So like if I have food and I require a bar.
Yeah.
So
As opposed to import.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait a minute. What's it? Import?
Yep. Or load at that for that matter.
Right. What's the difference between? I know what load does. It's like executing the script in line, but what's the difference between require and import?
So what's the difference? I don't know. I mostly use require now, and I've been living in a Python land for like 3 months now.
So I guess the question is, one thing that's been happening really interesting, and I have like one foot in the Ruby community and another foot in the Node community.
Sure, like all of us.
Well, we're making it better. We're actually working on a replacement for Babel right now, and it's working out, so it's doing very well. It's called Rollup. And it uses
Why have you not switched to just, oh well, okay.
Yeah, and it uses a transpiler called Bubble, Blade, if you will. And
Nice.
if you don't
Blade,
touch
very
it,
nice.
it does. So here's what it does, and this is the non-boot part, is that when you require module food
Yeah.
from bar, or you have food and require bar, it's going to go through your code and do a static analysis of your code to figure out which modules are actually being called.
Okay.
And it tree shakes and removes all dead code from anything that you require. So, for instance, with Rails, we always claim your modularity where, I can just use active record, but that's bullshit because it includes active support and everything.
Sure, yeah. You took a really fat example there.
Right.
It's an easy target.
Well, that's the point, right? So think how many dependencies we have
Yeah.
in a vendor folder. The thing that's happening in the Node community is like 80% of the stuff in there you don't even use.
Yep.
So what they do is they hook into the import statement to a code analysis, figure out which code paths are being used and aren't,
Yep.
and strips out all of the code that you want.
Better than shrink wrap.
Correct, right. So it's replacing Babel and Web. We're replacing Babel and Webpack right now.
Yay, Webpack does a lot more than that.
Well, look at the commit history.
All right, I'll check it out. I'll check it
What's
out.
in now, dude?
Yeah.
So the question is that
I'm in charge of a React project, so.
React's using it now too. You must not
Yeah.
be privy to that, man. This is as of 2 weeks ago, bro.
Oh yeah?
Yes, sir. So can that
Expect
happen?
me to be 2 weeks.
Can that happen can that happen in Ruby land? Like the question is, can you hook into requires and do things like static?
It's a little bit different just because of the Yagen class setup, right? So the actual static analysis, you need something like Laser to do it.
Laser.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Laser's a good point. That's a great point to start on because I think Laser does the deep introspection on static analysis. And it was kind of abandoned because it was a little flaky, but they really kind of stirred up some really good things that the Code Climate guys couldn't stop talking about it for like 2 weeks.
I see. Huh. So is require an actual thing you can? Is that like some reserved word, or is it an actual true object that you can use? I have
It's definitely reserved,
Okay.
but cool. Yeah. Not Ruby, but good.
Well, Laser is
Laser is Ruby, yeah,
Laser's
yeah.
instruction in is that Laser, I guess, does static analysis for Ruby, which was the.
Well,
I was seeing it
a
in
lot of
Node.
things do. There's a lot of levers for static analysis on Ruby.
I see, because I was seeing it in Node, but I was like, how do I do that in Ruby? Because I want to do that in Ruby.
I'm not sure if best practices goes into them, but a lot of the sadomasochistic suite did, like Flog and all of those tools went. They at least used a couple of components that were doing some simple static analysis. Anyway.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Cool. So I just read a great book that I'm kind of propagating to a lot of people called The Leprechauns of Software Engineering. And what that is a very simple discussion about how folklore happens in software development, right? If I were to ask anybody the virtues of, or the actual reasons for using TDD, or BDD, or whatever a software process or design attribute, even solid for that matter, good OO principles, right? I guarantee someone is going to bring up a piece of folklore, right? Like TDD makes software cheaper to make because it catches errors early, and if you catch errors early, it's cheaper than catching them late. That makes sense, right? But it's a little bit of Trumpism, no truth politics. It's a little, right? No, I'm serious. Like, there's no actual evidence of that.
Yeah.
What there is it sounds right. It feels good in the gut. And this book is a great introduction on how to basically critically think about when you're confronted with that and deal with it from a professional standpoint, right? Challenge basic assumptions. When people are doing something to actually trace back a problem that happened at work, right? Make sure that when you do that analysis, you find what happened and you draw an actual causation to the actual problem, and then make your recommendation based on stopping that problem, right? Not, we need to do, we need to have a more agile workflow so that we can have better quality software and not have this thing that happened happen again, right? That type of stuff is all over the place in our industry, right? We also have a huge variation in software quality, right? We have developers who will produce code that is awful, right? And software developers who will produce code that is great, depending on the circumstance. There's hardly any difference to a hiring manager, right? Or, a lot of times that's true. So I think just having critical tools inspect and critical people inspect what's coming across in our industry, even in blogs and tweets and all that nonsense, will shift direction to be a little bit more accountable for the mythologies we create, right? I know that TDD is the right thing, and I practice it, but I don't try to say that it's going to be cheaper for a client, right? That sounds great. Everybody loves that.
So why do you do
Why
it?
do I do it?
Yeah.
Because it challenges my assumption of software design. When I do a proper TDD, I produce less code when I start, A, right? So it's a lower threshold. And B, I know through my TDD tests, by just writing a test and having to pass, 5 parameters to a method or something, right? I know that's bad. And I start to do it immediately, right? I start to see bad design in my code, and I'm able to correct it.
And as you iterate, it also, you could break a previous test and okay, this doesn't work, you can make them.
Right. And you can draw that from more than just an a simple analogy, right? You have solid examples of when TDD is properly in place, you have less churn on the code that was properly tested to begin with, right? That section of code has less commits on it, you know, within reason.
But I noticed that, you know, the two most difficult things in computer science, cache and validation, naming things, and off by one error, right?
Yep.
And so, like, the naming thing's fun. TDD, it's weird. It's like you're creating the scope of the thing that you want to test.
Sure.
So what I've noticed is that the variables that are within that scope, the names of them start flushing out within the TDD process before you even get to the code. So if I have like this object foo that's going to take a Baz art, like an actual Baz named thing.
Sure, great naming example.
I bet the farm that Baz is going to be within the scope of the object when you use it in your production code. And
Okay.
if it's not, then how the heck did you have that mapping conflict? Like where, and also it helps you more so dependency inject with mocking. Because usually the argument is like, oh, my code's too complex to test, or
Yeah.
and it's just like, what? The trick is, if you can't test the thing, then like that's the sign. That's the smell, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's breaking good OO principles, right? And you can see that in your test. TDD is reliant on like solid principles. But yeah, so the book is called Leprechauns of Software Design. Author is Laurent Bossavant. Bossavit. Bossavit. Ben. How folklore turns fat into fact and what to do about it.
Matt, could you share it on the big screen?
Yeah. Maybe. And so there's the image of the maybe. Yep. Pretty good. Yeah, so the folklore turns into fact and what to do about it. So just to work through quickly some of the outline. Why should you care about empirical data? The messy workings of scientific discourse, right? And I think one of the best examples of this is when this book was in beta. It's a great example in which Graham Lee, who did test-driven iOS development, included a table which reproduces a claim about the cost of defects, right? After reading an early draft of Leprechauns, Graham published a retraction in the following terms. I made a mistake. I perpetuated what seems now, since I analyze it, to be a big myth in software engineering. I uncritically quoted some work without checking its authority, and now find it lacking, right? And that's the type of conversations that we should have as software developers, is to confront each other with quality concerns or something of that nature, have an actual conversation about the code half the time with the code in order to demonstrate a actual scientific hypothesis. Yeah, something that, yeah, this code is crap. Why is it crap? Right? Because you're using a different methodology that I'm accustomed to, right? Or because your 4 tabs should be 8 spaces. That type of thing. So Graham took it seriously, and he went looking for actual, he supported his claims in a different way that could be represented and actually defended with scientific principles. I think that's good. And I don't think it should detract from the fun, innovation, or creativity of Ruby, despite what Python people will tell you. Creativity and science are things that go together. It's the only reason that we have innovation at the level of reuse and repurpose and actually taking from one discipline and applying it to another. So I think sometimes a lot of people in the Ruby community are kind of given a hard time about being less adept at the software engineering or computer science side of things, because there's a lot of there's a lot of software out there that a lot of people are entering the field are doing, and that's great, right? That should not be a problem. That's not something that we should look down on communities for. So anyway, this is a great book. It goes through 3 different types of mythologies, right? You have tacit leprechauns, folklore, and formal, and tells you how to identify and how to confront them. So that's my book recommendation for today. Also, I've been playing a lot with FluentD. It's like a log processing consumer. Yeah, I'm not sure. Have you used FluentD? Like if you use Hadoop or something, you use FluentD for a lot of publishing logs out to a central store through like Logstash, things like that. It's good for Hadoop type stuff. But it's written in Ruby and it's a great show. Check it out.